to see if we could learn more about it through getting into its mechanisms and uncovering its expressive processes. Our experiment produced an artifact that revealed how the code expresses and disrupts conventional narrative and operates a lot like poetic forms. So today, I will discuss the process of approaching web coding language as a novice, learning how to read and interpret Reagan Library's JavaScript, and how we executed the remix. Ultimately, our project took the opportunity to create questions for further inquiry at the same time that we were able to gesture a greater understanding of Reagan Library. We did not have much prior web coding experience before undertaking our remix. As Maggie noted earlier, we knew enough to open the source code for the pages of Reagan Library and peek around, but we didn't know what we were looking at. We were only able to understand the mechanisms and the expressive processes underlying Reagan Library when we started manipulating, experimenting, and improvising within the confines of Stuart Malthrop's original code. So we took a zip file from the electronic literature collection online of Reagan Library and made a copy of all of the files. From here, we were able to then look at how the hierarchy operated, how the pages related to one another, and how the narrative then came together. We were able to learn everything about the structure through experimentation, through testing things out, rather than relying on any prior knowledge or by acquiring specialized training. First, we created a version of Reagan Library that replaced all of that pink variant text, the JavaScript arrays, with the titles of various functions and the position within the arrays that they referred to. When we then played Reagan Library with these references in place instead of the original text, we were able to see for the first time how the JavaScript arrays operated to construct that narrative and how we might then manipulate these processes to create something new. So what you can't see here is that image at the top. So we were not able to experiment with the nominal functions that were embedded in those VR QuickTime panoramas because we replaced those with static images. The software they used to build those doesn't really exist anymore. So because of this, when we play or read our new version, we sometimes get stuck in loops, something that the arrays embedded in the panoramas prevented from happening. So without getting into the code and altering the narrative text, we may have never realized how much the narrative structure relies on each individual JavaScript array for Reagan Library to function at all. So we hope in the future to be able to make a version that brings this nominal function back into play. For our second intervention, we chose to replace the variant narrative text in those arrays with the text of Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And we chose to use Rime of the Ancient Mariner because we felt there was a kinship between the two texts, and because Rime of the Ancient Mariner had enough text to mine for the project. We stripped out Malthrop's variant text first, and then input lines from the poem that were structurally similar to the fragments that Malthrop used, so that, theoretically, sentences that were pieced together between the static text and our new variant text would still make sense. Once this process was complete, we moved on to the original pages. So because we weren't able to alter those VR panoramas, and because we were not working with large blocks of prose or a very, very long poem, even though we thought we were working with a long enough poem, our remix is most interesting in the beginning, which is the opposite of Reagan Library, because there's more